to VPG's Virtual Water Cooler Chat podcast, a platform that celebrates the rich tapestry of professional diversity, with a particular emphasis on empowering women. We aim to foster diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, DEIA, for all, while recognizing and championing the achievements of everyone as a central pillar of our journey. In our conversations, we explore a wide spectrum of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives, creating a vibrant mosaic that enriches our collective understanding and strengthens our commitment to diversity and empowerment. Today, we had the pleasure of chatting with Angela Oliver, a senior associate at Haynes and Boone. Angela is an appellate and intellectual property attorney who focuses her practice on appeals before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, Federal District Court litigation, and post-grant proceedings before the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Angela was recently recognized in Patexia's 2023 CAFC Intelligence Report as being in the top 5 best-performing attorneys at the Federal Circuit and in the top 30 most active attorneys before that court. Angela has also assisted clients throughout inter parte review and post-grant review proceedings, from drafting petitions and patent owner responsibilities to presenting oral argument. She also assists with critical issues in patent infringement litigation, including dispositive motion practice, appellate preservation, and development of the jury charge.
Angela, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for letting me join today.
I am so glad to get a yes from you for being a guest on the Virtual Water Cooler Chat, because I know that you are very hot in that, the PTAP field, and so very grateful. I first want to congratulate you on being a mother now. Tell us a little bit about that, and does that change Angela in any way?
Yeah, so it's great. This is a wonderful development. I'm so excited. And I will say, having a kid, it's like a new adventure every day. Watching him grow and learn about the world, it's just so much fun to see. So my husband and I are thrilled. Does that change me? I think I will say just practically, I've always heard that parents are some of the most efficient people in the world, and I am slowly trying to learn that skill of being, a working parent and trying to juggle a lot of things at once. And I can already see that I'm becoming more efficient in the way that I work and do things. So I guess in that sense, it's changing me a little bit.
So let's get started on the personal and professional journey to become a patent attorney. And you also had some clerkship in both district courts and federal circuit courts. So can you share with our audience the story of Angela?
So I'll say I always had patent law on my mind as an option for my career since I was very young, because growing up, my dad was a patent attorney who would work with inventors to help them obtain patent protection for their inventions. So patent law was, at least patent prosecution, was something that was always familiar to me because I had seen it in my family. In fact, my parents actually love to tell this story about when I was about 3 years old. I was apparently sitting in my dad's office scribbling on some paper, as kids do. And when my parents asked what I was doing, apparently I told them that I was working on my patents. So I guess patent law was always in my future, even from when I was like 3 years old.
You got a head start.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that was the writing on the wall. So once I finished my undergraduate degree, I did a STEM background. My background's in bioinformatics, which is kind of computer science and genetics kind of combined into one field. And after that, I was considering a few different options. I was considering being a full-time software developer, also considering maybe going the PhD research route and trying to be kind of a research scientist in that area, or I was still considering law school. And ultimately, I worked for a year after undergrad to kind of, see what I wanted to do and think about it a little bit more, and ultimately decided that law school was the path for me. And I really started off thinking I would do patent prosecution because, again, that's what I was familiar with and thought it was really interesting. And so I did patent prosecution when I was a 1L summer, for example, kind of learned about that. But eventually, over the course of time, after I went through law school and I did my 2 clerkships after law school, I realized that my strengths were really better suited for more of a litigation type experience. Specifically now, I've focused, as you know, on appellate law and on post-grant proceedings at the Patent Office, as well as kind of targeted issues and appellate issues in district court litigation.
Do you have a favorite in terms of district courts, PTAB, or federal circuit?
Yeah, so, I do all of it, and I really enjoy all of it. So I'm not sure that there's a clear favorite. I would say, probably the most of what I do right now is appellate work and focusing on federal circuit appeals, and I really love that. But I enjoy all of it. I really love practicing for the PTAB, putting together IPRs, putting together patent owner responses, and then same with district court. There's just so many interesting things that happen in district court, so many unique issues that come up, and at the end of the day, you get to, appear in front of a jury, and that's just a lot of fun as well.
That's great. I know that you have actually clerked at the Eastern District of Texas before. What is the experience in comparison to clerking at the federal circuit, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I often get this question when I'm talking to law students who are considering, applying for clerkships, which I always encourage. I think clerkships are a great experience. And I always give the same answer on this question, right? So clerking in district court and a court of appeals are just two totally different experiences, but they are both incredible and both just wonderful learning opportunities in different ways. In district court, so I started my district court clerkship just after taking the bar exam, so I was brand new, and that district court clerkship really helped me put everything from law school kind of together in my head. So I got to see, you learn about these different stages of litigation in civil procedure, but then actually seeing it play out in district court, I could see cases go from start to finish, from complaint to judgment and everything in between. Not to mention along the way, I just got to see a million incredible trial lawyers and had the chance to watch them and learn what they did to be an effective advocate before the judge, in many cases before the jury too. And in district court, every day is completely different. So one day you'll have a criminal sentencing, the next day you have 3 civil discovery hearings, the next day you have a Markman hearing, and then you're in the middle of trial and you've got a jury there. So there's always something different going on, and it really keeps you on your toes in that sense. The appellate clerkship, again, is just as incredible, just very different when you look at it from a day-to-day experience. So the appellate clerkship is really focused on, you're reading the parties' briefing, you're researching the case law, you're analyzing the arguments and the evidence, and the opinion from the first tribunal. But you still have the chance to really learn deeply about the law there, and you get to see, again, incredible attorneys who are at the top of their game, on their feet during oral arguments, and you can learn from what they're doing. And the same with the briefing, right? You're reading 1,000 briefs, and so you can really start to understand what makes a brief effective, what works, what doesn't work, what's the most persuasive. And so in my experience, for me, it was a really important step to shape how my journey would go forward in my career, just having that experience and learning how to be a better writer and a better advocate.
Do you have any specific story that actually is very impressionable for you for either a district court or federal circuit that actually say, wow, that really changed my perspective about the law?
In district court, one thing that I got to see was, I think we had 13 jury trials, maybe we had a bench trial in there the year that I was clerking. First of all, that's just so incredible that to get to see that many trials, because trials these days, as you know, are pretty rare, or at least they're few and far between. So getting to see that many, it was just really incredible. I can't remember, I'm sure there's 1,000, trial stories that if I think through, I could highlight a few, but I would say really just kind of seeing the interaction between the attorneys from both sides of the case, presenting their arguments to a jury, right? A jury of our peers. This is, how our civil system is designed to work, and let the jury decide. It was really interesting. It was just really interesting to see the attorneys kind of interacting with the jurors, putting on their case, what they thought was the most effective. And we'd go for multiple days in a row, and the jury would come back every day, and just kind of seeing that engagement, I thought was really unique. It's what you hear about, it's what you see on TV, but to actually see it in real life was a lot of fun.
I mean, I had some stories. I did go to a trial, because Eastern District of Texas is patent rocket docket. And we all already know that it has the most personality in that particular docket. So sometimes in patent cases, when we ran that, Marshall, Texas, for example, is not the easiest place to get to. Whatever airport that you fly to, you still have to drive about 2 hours.
That's true.
Unless you go to Louisiana, and then you drive maybe about an hour and a half or something like that. going to do trial logistic was not fun. And you see all kinds of personality. And when you're doing like trial coordination, not you, but we had to do that. And then part of the thing is like you have to feed the attorneys. The team has to be fed well so that they could go to war, right? You set up war rooms, and I remember like some crazy stories. We had to wait for the truck and unload all the exhibits, and it's just crazy time. If I tell you that I have not done district court cases since I left my previous firm, would you believe that? I was like, I still kind of know how to do it, but I was like, So that just brings back so much memory each time when I'm talking to different people on this podcast. Last week I talked to Amanda Dokuto from Meta, and she also clerked at the Eastern District of Texas before. And we talked a bit about from the cultural, because we're both women of color. So we talked about some of the experiences, and she related some experience that was really interesting. I mean, she had like a very interesting background and did not rise from the most affluent economic class, but really went to the top. So I am so thankful that I have this particular podcast platform to speak with different people and learn, and also allow people to share. And I think that sometimes that is sort of what's missing in our community, because we are like deadline, billable hours. I'm sure that you have plenty of things to do. So I'm extra grateful that you are taking time to chat with me about this. And hopefully, the next generation can learn from our experiences. So very grateful that you're doing that. But yeah, I mean, it just brought back like so many memories. I was like, oh my God. There were times when we were doing like trial and we don't sleep for like, I don't know, for a week, you don't sleep. And I don't even know how I actually got through that. And I don't do that many trials. And I think it takes certain personality to do trial. I mean, I do detail-oriented work, but I'm not really a trial person. I think that it doesn't jive with me. I can do the stuff behind the scene, which is why like, it's quite hilarious that last year I started the podcast, and then in 1 year we did 35 episodes.
Wow, that's impressive.
Oh, I don't know. That's probably insanity too. It's how you look at it. I promised my event pro, like my webinar coordinator, that I'm going to go a little easier. So we are so far releasing only 2 a month, and we have already recorded a whole bunch, because we pre-record. It has been really amazing. And then the thing is, sometimes people say, how do you pick who to be on the podcast? I was like, I don't know. First, I have to like them. So you're on the like list. And then second is, I think sometimes I would go for the people that I have previously interacted with and that I actually have a lot of admiration and respect for. And I've always known that my interaction with you has always been very pleasant, just speaking the truth. So, and I also know that you are so good at appellate work.
I don't know about that, but I appreciate the confidence.
Well, sometimes other people have to give you feedback so that you can kind of know that you're a woman attorney here and in a kind of a pretty competitive field. And there's not that many women patent attorneys in terms of statistics. So how do you feel about the stats in the current, like for example, PTAP cases? I mean, we haven't seen the last report, and I think the very last one was like 12%, 13% or something like that. I'm hoping that it has actually rise. But, what are your thoughts about it? And what do you think you and other women practitioners can do to help bring in additional new blood into the field?
Yeah, and I'm with you. I haven't seen kind of the current stats on how many women attorneys are practicing before the PTAB. I think, usually at the PTAB Bar Conference every year, I think we see some of those. So maybe next week, I think, we'll go there. So hopefully.
See, I have a stress ball here.
Yeah, so that's going to be a lot of fun, maybe for an update on that. But, I think it is an important issue. And certainly I think we've made progress, and we're seeing more and more women who are regularly appearing in PTAB proceedings. Thankfully, I can think of a few good friends at my firm and other firms who are regularly involved in these. But I'll tell you just one example of how I think we can continue to kind of build up the women who are doing PTAB work is a friend of mine at another firm who does PTAB work all the time. She has been very instrumental since early in my career in kind of getting me involved in different organizations, in the different patent law organizations, and giving me leadership opportunities and inviting me to events and things like this to kind of help me build my brand and build my network in the patent community. And, I am extremely grateful for that because she had her foot in the door and now she's holding the door open for me to kind of let me come along and do some of the things that she's done as she then continues to go on and do even better things with her career. So I think that's an important step, right, is women bringing along other women and encouraging them and supporting them as we go through this career together. I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do. And of course, I think there's a lot of other things as well and important roles for men as well. But in my experience, having those women that have been ahead of me in my career that are kind of holding doors open for me has been extremely helpful.
Yeah, so collaborating instead of competing.
Absolutely.
I think it's changing. I'm hoping that it's changing. And as we see more of the events and the community is building awareness of how this is not going to work, because the next question that I wanted to ask you is how do you feel about diversity? Because we heard all kinds of arguments that diversity brings in different perspective. It can only make a team or a litigation team better or a company better. I am thinking about what are your thoughts on this topic?
So obviously that's a very broad topic, but I think the points that you already mentioned are really kind of the core of what we need to think about, right, is over and over we've seen how diversity efforts have improved our teams, have improved our client services, and so that's just one of many reasons why it's important for firms and institutions and organizations, different patent law organizations and things like that is what I'm thinking of. All of these different groups need to continue to prioritize this going forward because it enriches things for everyone. And so, again, a broad topic here, but I think absolutely you're hitting kind of the core themes.
So last week I talked to Amanda about this and I have never met her before. So we only exchange in emails. I don't know about you, but so many people, I'm very conscious about not doing this because I read a book by Brandy Braun, The New Playbook for Women at Work. I don't know if you have read it before. I have extra copy. I'll bring you a copy. As a thank you gift to do this.
I always love more books.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have enough books, right? And so one of the things that she and another person, Lisa Sun, she used to work at McKinsey and Company, and her first evaluation was basically from the partner, whoever, was basically said that she's great and she's young, but she need to have more gravitas. I mean, it's kind of hurtful to be on an evaluation in writing. And so, but that sort of drives her to study about confidence. So on March 11, I'm interviewing Lisa Sun. And I know her from Deepa Purushottam, who is a huge DEI advocate. And she was on season 1 of Virtual Water Cooler Chat. And this goes to the people that I like. I read her book. I like it. I have questions. I write them. And then they write back and say, oh, by the way, would you like to be on my Virtual Water Cooler Chat? Some people would say, what's your audience? I'm don't know yet. We haven't started. But it was so interesting. Deepa immediately said, yes, just give me a day. I said that, well, I'm talking to my idol now. I have a couple of my idols. But it was such a great discussion. So what I wanted to ask you is that women being able to say no and also sorry. So a lot of time, for example, we're running I'm so sorry, this and that. And these are basically in all 3 books. The first few, the only from Deepa, and then the gravitas, the 8 types of confidence from Lisa Sun, and also Randy Braun's that talked about the new playbook for women at work. And the thing is we don't always have to say sorry. let's change the game and not say sorry. Because, for example, if you're running late, thank you so much for waiting, or thank you for your patience. I think we need to get into the habit of saying that there's nothing to be sorry about. In that sense, I mean, I'll be the first one to admit if I did something wrong, I will apologize. But I think that mindset is that it's something that really need to be brought to people's awareness so that we can actually establish boundaries and so we can assert what belongs to us. The credit, accepting the blame sometimes, but, when it belongs, but, asserting basically what is rightfully ours. What do you feel about that? You didn't know that I'm going to go there.
Yeah, I would love to read that book. That sounds super interesting. And, I've seen kind of thoughts like that before. I think sometimes stuff like that pops up on my LinkedIn and different suggestions like that. I've heard, the thanks for your patience one. I think that's kind of a nice kind of switch in language. And I can't think of them right now, but I've seen some other examples like that where it's just like, let's shift our wording just a little bit to kind of reorient the conversation. And that's really interesting. And that's something to think about as maybe a way to change how we interact by default. So I'll have to think about that, but I would love to read that.
Yeah, I'll bring it to the conference. So Amanda and I, when we chatted, one of the things that we chatted about is that as women, culturally, we are so conditioned, even with the toys and the things that we were brought up to, like, kitchen set, we are much more in a serving mentality. So this is totally generalization, but it's not instinctual for us to basically say, do I really want this opportunity? And sometimes it's like, if something needs to be done, something needs to be done, you just go right and get it done. We've talked about, like last time, that it seems much more natural because the upbringing of how men are brought up to be like adventurous. I've talked to Shana Hoffman before that when she was like a young girl, she was like, we were like sent out to be in recess and we don't know where the boys go. They went to computer lab. So she was like, where are all these people, the boys disappearing to? And then eventually she go ask them, she had to go ask the teachers or something like that. And then she had to really fight for it. And eventually she was like, I'm going to learn. And she's an AI expert now. So much of this is like, if we didn't challenge it, if we don't think about it, we just accept it. And so I thought that was really interesting. But of course, I also lived in the litigation space for a long time. So I know sometimes that saying no is not easy at all. Because when the deadline comes, this is not your time to assert boundaries. It's like, oh, you want to do it? Someone else will do it. So that's one of the things that I have so much fun reminiscing with Amanda, because neither one of us are in that space right now. Like I told her, I said, one of the examples I gave her was that I was so bad at saying no before. I'm still practicing, much better now.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I had one prospective client call me and really was very insulting. And I don't know exactly what brought that on. It could be a lot of time I would think about, well, did I do something to trigger this? But I don't know that I really did. So after the person say a series of 3 things, and after that, I just decided that I don't want to do this. And for some of my American friends, they would say that, well, why would you even have to consider? I would immediately say no. So my threshold is based on culture, experiences. My threshold is so much higher in terms of tolerance. So I would just keep thinking about, and it could be self-esteem too. Let's not forget about that. And so part of it is that I don't know that I can actually say no. So this particular journey of mine on VPG is really important in terms of being able to explore. And I don't have to really justify to a whole lot of people. I have some amazing clients, and those are not amazing. I let them go. And the thing is, like, what I'm finding most meaningful right now is to be able to work with the young ones. And so I have a group of people, I just added 3 people. And people was like, do you even have enough time? You're going to regret it. I said, I'm sure I'll regret it, but for the time being, it's fine. I mean, there will be moments I'll regret it, but there are moments that is not. So yesterday, I was going through an exercise. We were branding exhibits, and it forces me to think. Because we always talk about, it's like, well, Gen Z is going to be taking over, however many percent in 20 whatever years that is, right? So we read so many reports. But we're looking at from our perspective, but not necessarily from their perspective. So I feel like very, very blessed to be able to work with, surrounded by my whole ecosystems of animals. And everyone, I would ask them when they join, I was like, okay, well, first thing first, orientation. What animal would you like to be? And what would you name it? And what would be the personality? So we just added a rag doll. I'm like, do we have a rag doll in Safari? I don't know. We have to be inclusive, right? So whatever goes. So we have a rag doll this just in February. And then we have a toucan. We also added an elephant.
Very nice.
Illustrator is working on all of this stuff. I've done litigation for over 2 decades. I know how to do Adobe. I know how to brand exhibit, metadata scrub, and all these things. If I assign someone Adobe software, I don't remember what they see as an end user. It depends what their system is and all these things. So I had someone that I was training to do like some exhibits. Very smart. I gave her the deadline. Everything was on point. And I got the exhibits back. I got individual hyperlink to the PDFs. And I was like, I'm on a deadline. You want me to download each link? What is going on here? Just want to hit my head against the wall. So finished that part. Then yesterday we had a discussion. We talked about what I asked her to do. And we also talked about, I said, let's go over the assignments because I need to know exactly what went wrong. She was like, I don't know either. So we went and I said, okay, well, pull up your email. Let's share screen. Look at it. And honestly, I just want to delegate that troubleshooting to someone else. I really don't have time for this. So I'm sitting there and so going over this stuff, share screen. And then I was like, yeah, manual save as this PDF. Each time it's saved as an HTML. I said, are you using PC or are you using Mac? It's like, I'm using PC. I said, okay. All right. So we go through all this thing. And finally, at the end, it's like, Ash, I really don't know what's going on. I said, neither do I. I said, let's ask our friend. She's like, who is that? Google. I said, that's a very familiar friend. I said, okay, share screen. Let's type in your query. And then so we basically sit there and together and work on this stuff. And then she looked at it. I mean, she had much better vision than I do, like literal vision. Aging does not work well with me. So she was reading that and immediately she was like, oh, that's because my default is to saving to HTML. I said, well, I'll change it. And then she immediately changed it. I said, well, let's test it. And then drag it to OneDrive. Do this, do that, right? So that's how we actually did it. At the end of it, we did our high five, because we always do whenever we get something done right. I thought that was really, it's the thing is, you were saying the digital native, they would know about doing all of this stuff, but they were stuck at that stage of frustration. And I got a text this morning from her and said, thank you for personally training me. That made me feel so good. And I think that that's the next question. How do you feel about, and I know that you're like a busy litigator and stuff like that, and a lot of times we don't, at least I, at the time, it's like when we are trying to fight our deadline, a lot of time, the people that are entering the field, they don't necessarily have the proper guidance, because if you barely have enough time for yourself, you're not going to sit there and do that because it's so easy to say, no, I don't have time, especially now that you also have your son to fight your attention with, right? So what would you say, maybe 2 pieces of advice to encourage people to help the next generation that is entering into the legal field so that they can feel supported?
So, I think mentorship is hugely important. I've had multiple mentors in my career who have helped me and guided me along the way. And sometimes those look different, right? Sometimes your mentor is someone who is kind of at a higher level guiding you smart career steps to take, someone guiding you like, hey, try to go work on this case, try to get some experience doing this. Sometimes it can be kind of a high-level mentor, but also some of the most effective help that I've gotten is really just nitty-gritty feedback from lawyers who are more experienced than me. And I can say with 100% confidence that my writing has improved significantly because people who had years more experience than me took the time, and it takes a lot of time, to actually go through my writing and redline it and say, here's how you can word this sentence in a way that's more concise and more effective and more persuasive. And, having someone do that over and over and explain to me why they're making their edits, why they're restructuring the brief or something like that, that takes a lot of time, for the more senior attorney. But it's so important because that's the best way to train the next generation of lawyers who you're going to be working with, right? So, there's a reason just generally we should be helping the next generation because that's the right thing to do, but also practically those people are going to be your colleagues, for many years. So, it's good to have them be fabulous attorneys too. So if the first reason wasn't motivating enough, there's a second reason as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Angela. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I think the world of you. With that, I want to give you some time back so you could get to your next billable assignment. And I'll see you at the PTAP Bar Annual Conference next week.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ashley. It's really been a pleasure talking with you. Thanks for letting me participate.